Hello, world history students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 25, Section 3, The Scramble for Africa. So, in number 1, the factors that led to the new imperialism were the desire for markets for manufactured goods and investments, a desire for raw materials, and the desire to protect European entrepreneurs and rivalries between European powers. European powers claimed territory in Africa when the British took over control of Egypt and began to compete with the French over trade in West Africa. Belgium, under the leadership of Leopold II, began to develop commercial interest in Congo, and Germany declared a protectorate, which is kind of like being kind of a country that oversees the protection of another country over 4 African territories. And number 3, prior to the 1880s, Europeans controlled only some parts of Africa's coast. The development that spurred European expansion for Africa after the 1880s were the British takeover of Egypt to ensure the security of the Suez Canal. The British and the French had a competition over trade to the interior of the West Coast colonies of Africa, and the development of Belgium's commercial interest in Congo. You had the rise of new powers that sought colonial empires as well. Africans resisted European imperialism in battle, modern weapons, and sometimes without them. So when we talk about our Europeans coming in and having necessarily a military advantage, at some point in time, African peoples are going to get those weapons, and eventually the battles that are going to happen are sometimes going to be very difficult for the Europeans, at times pushing them back and forth as far as where they're going to hold territories. In number 6, only one nation, or the only nation in Africa that was able to retain its independence, was the nation of Ethiopia. Though, when we get closer to World War II, that's going to be challenged by the Italians. And if you take a look at the map below, you can kind of see some of the different territories to the left that were held by our European colonies. When you look at the British holdings, Great Britain, for the most part, controls that area along the Nile River and kind of close to the east and the southern parts of Africa. When we talk about Spain, their colonies are much smaller, a little closer to home, making it maybe easier for them to govern. Portugal, when you talk about places like Mozambique and Angola, that's where they held their territories. Belgium, primarily along the Congo River in the area of the Belgian Congo. The French, the green area, primarily of West Africa, and then Madagascar. And our Italians, again, Libya, which is right across from the boot heel of Africa. And then the area that today would probably be known more as Somalia, along the Horn of Africa. After our world wars, there's going to be a series of nations declaring their independence. Some of that is because of the fact that the French and the British had a lot of war debt after the Second World War, and so some of that territory is going to be given up. But if you look at the map to the right here, you can kind of see the establishment of some of these nations by the time we get into the 1950s. Thank you very much.